Welcome, welcome to the next episode of Teachers in Business. I have lost track of the numbers at this point. I want to say that this is going to be 38, but I don't know. I'm too excited. That's why, because my friend Stacey is here. Stacey Andon, I was going to do it wrong and I did it right, is a life and business coach who is, it says expert here in her bio, but she's more than that. I'm going to just editorialize her bio because it's way underselling her wonderfulness. She does help you navigate midlife meltdowns. That is the truth of it. And is all about helping you find clarity in all the things you're doing and using your intuitive gifts to do it, to make it easier, to make it more fun, and really to find your way into yourself in a way you don't even know is there. So in her bio, it says, imagine waking up to feel your life feeling like you won the lottery, the life lottery. This is the truth. I like that part. I'm going to keep that one. This is what she does with people, but she was also a teacher because so many of the most wonderful people on earth started their careers as a teacher. And this is one of my teaching friends. So Stacey, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much. I know it is. I always say teachers are the most amazing beings on the planet. Of course, I'm wholly biased completely. And I always said we make excellent entrepreneurs and people in business because there's so much I know I learned when I, especially like looking back on my teaching experience. I was like, oh my gosh, when people are like, how do you know how to do this? And how are you confident in this? I was like, everything I feel like goes back to what I learned and all the experience and all the mess ups that I did with a bunch of 14-year-olds for almost 10 years.
Well, and nothing teaches you to fail forward like teaching. It's
Oh,
the truth of it.
truth.
So let's start here. I tend to start people in a very similar place. So talk to me about how you define teacher and what it
Mm.
means to be a teacher in your view of the world, because I think so often we define teacher as person that taught in classroom and school building, and yes, you've done that, but I don't think that's the whole of it. So talk to me about what your version of teacher means.
Ooh, that's a really good question. And it's interesting because when I was 5, I proclaimed to the world, I mean, a lot of people were listening, that I was a teacher. I didn't know like, I mean, I knew my teachers in school, but my family, nobody was a teacher. I proclaimed it. This is what I am here to do on the planet. And when I started very traditional path, right, becoming a traditional teacher, at that point, always I felt like it's my role to help every student that comes through, first of all, be seen, to know that they matter. I think above all else, all of the other content or whatever else we're facilitating, it's seeing each other. And teachers have such an intimate relationship, right? We get to be in people's lives, students' lives, clients' lives in ways that most people are not. And so I think there's an intimacy there in teaching that probably gets overlooked or not spoken about. And I also truly believe, and as I've kind of morphed into maybe or grown into this teaching through the coaching lens, we're here to help people really remember who they are and what's true for them. And I used to think of teachers like, oh, here's the information they need to master. This is what they need to know. And then I realized, like, no, it's nothing about that. I read a statistic one time that 80% of everything we learn in school and college, everywhere, you you lose 80%, which is probably even higher now because
It's
this is
about right though.
I went to school before the internet. Well, not really, but you know what I mean? Like, so it's probably even higher than that. Like maybe we retain 5%. And so what matters at the end of the day, if they are diagramming a sentence or know what a noun or a verb is, right? If you're talking about students, that doesn't matter to me. What matters is how you communicate who you are, how you share that, how you show up in your life, how you live your purpose. To me, teachers are like the highest calling because it's not that we want to create a bunch of mini me's. We want to create the next generation or all of the generations to have permission to really show up as who they are and what they know and share that. So that's my definition of teacher.
Well, and it's really this, like, in there I hear connectors
Mm,
and confidence builders
yes.
and like, it's not a factory. Like, someone described it once to me, like, well, but teaching is telling. Like, yes, that's not the definition of teaching that I walk around the world with. It's not me telling you anything.
Exactly.
Teaching is about, and you and I very much see eye to eye here, about giving people permission and confidence to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, I was always I am still like the unpopular math. Now I am popular with my students in some ways because of this, but like anti-popular programming that, like, I don't actually give a crap if you walk out being able to multiply. That's not the point. The
Yeah.
point is, can you figure it out when you need it? Do you
Yes.
have the confidence to walk away and be like, I can figure this out? I do the same thing with clients. Like, can you walk away and be like, I can figure this out? Then that's that. I don't care how you get there. I care that you get there. Like,
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
car doesn't
yes.
matter.
And there's this practicality I think you and I both also ascribe to around tools, right? How to help people get there so that when they embark, on their journey, their next step that may or may not include us, they have everything they need. And to your point, what I love too is even if they don't think they have it or know it, right? They know how to your point, figure it out or find it or use the resources. Like to me, that's such a powerful place to be. It's like I don't always know all the answers, which again, kind of maybe kind of taking us away from traditional educational dogma. I love the I don't know because it allows for us to be way more curious and way more in the present moment rather than taking what other people have said or whatever influences us and like trying to adopt it as our own.
Yeah, 100%. That's the thing. Like, the role of teacher is to help people figure out how to do that in
Yes.
whatever. I do it in math, you did it in English language arts. Like, we are friends anyways.
All my best teacher friends are math teachers, FYI.
I don't understand it. Even still, where I'm like, oh, I can't believe she talks to me. Most of those people think I'm the devil. But like, it is that ability to, and you said it right out of the gate, that like all of this applies to business.
Yeah.
All of this applies to everything everywhere, because if you get access to, I can figure out how,
Yeah.
you can always figure out how. Like, that's the thing in here. All right, so
Yeah.
tell me, you taught English language arts. Tell me
I
what
did.
you used to teach more than that, because there's some things in between. And then talk to me about Stacey's Hogwarts and all the way down the pike.
Say that to me one more time because I want to make sure I understand the
Talk to
question.
me about what you started out teaching,
Ah,
and then what you're teaching now, which is more even so than in your bio, the coaching part of it. Like, there's more there that's
got
fun.
it.
And I'm gonna make you talk about all the fun things here, and you were like, uh-oh, but that's fine. We're gonna do the whole thing.
Okay, I'm with you. So, as an English teacher, my biggest thing that I wanted to teach students was to be incredible communicators and critical thinkers. So it doesn't matter to me what if they read a comic strip or a book or this or that. Can you read something and have your own thoughts about it? What's the process of really taking something in and having your own independent thought, and how do you then express it out in the world? The number one thing in my entire opinion about all things is when we're in conflict and when it's communication,
Mm.
because I'm making something mean something or I have some knowledge of something and you come to the conversation with a completely different set, right, of expectations or perceptions or that kind of thing. How do we communicate effectively our ideas? How do we connect? How do we again make a convincing argument for something and not trying to again manipulate people, but absolutely stand and speak for the things we're for. So, as an English teacher, I didn't care about standardized. Oh, it makes me crinkle a little bit to
Woo!
say that out loud. I didn't care about standardized tests. And which was very much the pressure that was coming down the pike.
Still
I
is.
taught a long time ago, and what I felt was great education, great teaching. If the test is well done, I don't need to teach to a test. I want to teach to life. I want to teach, again, a 14-year-old, how do you navigate the trickier parts of things of life rather than, hey, you read the canon, right, of all the works of literature that, somebody decided was the best. No, let's get messy and expose ourselves to all different perspectives. Let's get super curious. And it's funny because that thread, now that I'm sharing that with you, goes through my entire my entire gamut is this curiosity and asking questions.
So how does that curiosity, the asking questions, the like learn to have your own thoughts about you and everything else and communicate them in a way that is both effective, but also not like I'm right, you're wrong, you're a terrible person, like
Yeah.
whatever, to think critically, to have your own jam. How does that experience in teaching come all the way to today in what you do with people now?
It's so funny. I never thought about it exactly like this. So this is a gift for me too. Is exactly what I'm doing with clients. Because what happens, most of my clients, right, are in the middle of their lives and they have gotten to the middle of their lives trying to follow all the rules. Ooh, what does a successful life look like? What is the world telling me? I need a degree. I need a 9 to 5 job. I need 2.5 kids and the dog and the whatever all of that is that has been told to us. Somehow, again, curious learners, by the time we get to the middle of our lives, so many of us have really fallen in to the systems, the beliefs, the paradigms of other people's definition of success and what it means to live a really meaningful life. And we've forgotten about curiosity. We've forgotten to ask questions.
Well,
We
but
don't,
we know it's there where it's that like,
yeah,
hmm, that
but it
like,
feels scary to ask because it's pushing up against even more so, right? As we become adults and we have responsibilities and all the things, it pushes up against this, like, can I give myself permission to do it a different way, to do it my way? I mean, that I think from almost every client I've ever worked with, they want that permission. I
well, and
don't,
it's also the like people like you and I who went when they were 5 years old,
yeah,
like, I'm going to be a teacher. And you go into the teaching world and you're like, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And then something happens, something changes, and you're like, this is not where I am anymore. And it's like, whoa, hold on. I always knew what I was going to be. And now I'm not. And what happens? Like, it's that. So sometimes it's a matter of curiosity because, like, I work with a lot of teachers and they get halfway through and they think, like, this doesn't fit me anymore. I have to find something that fits, or I'm burned out, or I'm tired, or I'm all of these things. But like for a me, we moved and suddenly it was like, I do something different now. Wait, hold on. What? One moment, please. Hold the phone. What's happening here in my life? Where it was like, or people have kids and then they don't go back. And it's like, oh God, now what am I? And
yeah,
it's that you bump into like, well, but if I'm not this, then what?
yeah. I have an interesting theory about that, and I actually shared it at a women's conference a couple years ago. And the attendants, the participants, were highly interested in this thought. I absolutely believe if you have this right, this teacher energy, this feeling in your bones, it is you could put me in a Starbucks or you could put me in the bank, right, at the drive through, and I'm going to be asking people, how are you, what's going on, what are you thinking about? I can't help myself. So we have these kind of 3D human wrappers of, like, it shows up as an English teacher, right, in 8th grade, or it shows up as a college professor, it shows up in these different things. But ultimately, that's just the expression right? Or the medium that we're playing with at the time, it's not actually our, like, to me, our life purpose is, I don't want to say like completely static because we do evolve and grow with it. However, I know in my bones, whatever I'm doing in the planet is going to be tied to exactly what I just said to you in terms of my definition of a teacher.
Yeah. Well, and that'll happen. I'm sure people listening can relate to it because you'll be doing something that is completely unrelated to teaching and you'll say something and people will go, "What did you used to teach?" Like I get that sometimes and people will be like, "Did you use what do you do?" And they'll go like, "Oh yeah, okay." Or like there's one in our world that you and I both know who every now and then of my Facebook feed will comment, "God, such a teacher, what the hell?" Like I'm sure I had a little rant about algebra as empowerment today on Facebook. So I'm sure that will get all the
That's
thing.
like my love of the Oxford comma, right? Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I got all kinds of fired up yesterday about algebra as a gatekeeper and like
love it,
yeah.
love it.
So that this morning like I fell out.
Yeah.
So talk to me about, we're going to look at it in two ways.
Mhm.
The challenges in business that you've come across, but I don't want to do that first because we don't lead with challenges. Forget that.
Okay, let's start somewhere else.
What is your favorite part about being in business as a teacher?
Ooh. So here's the thing I realized, not right away, but I realized it like maybe 2 years in, and I was like, "Ooh," one of the things I think teachers do extremely well, because basically, at least my experience as a teacher is like, "Here are these 150, students. Here's what they need to have accomplished by the end of the year. Go."
And do it 150 ways because by the way,
Go,
they all
right?
need something
And
different.
exactly, and so what I found that I don't think everybody has, but I think a lot of teachers have this ability. Big picture, strategic thinking. Okay, where are we going? What are the goals? What is the vision? And then equally, kind of like, again, I love to put things together that don't normally seem like they go together. You are also in charge of implementing all the actual, right, step by step processes. And, what is it going to look like once you've created the strategy?
Mm.
And I think being able to straddle both of those places, this is one of my favorite things. I love to be a visionary. Okay, what do I imagine for my business? What do I feel? What do I see? And then it's like, and I also love to get in the details of things. It's like, ooh, okay, are we doing a Facebook challenge? What are we doing? I'm doing, I've got an in-person event. It's just like all of these things that help people, again, tied to how do you really get reconnected if you felt disconnected from who you really are and why you're here on the planet.
Well, and it's that in business, it's that like, wait, why am I here? Wait, why am I here? Where are we trying to go? Where are we trying to go? Compared to like, what am I trying to move forward today?
Yeah.
Like, and you get to do both, but in a classroom, in any sort of teaching setting, you are always doing both. It's like, okay, where are we ending up? And what am I doing today? And yes, there's a rabbit hole standing over there that I can go fall in, but we will never, ever get where we're going if we go fall in that rabbit hole 3 days in a row. Like we can't keep doing that and get to that endpoint. And sort of navigating those two pieces is like teachers do that incredibly well. Cause like I was talking to a friend the other day, she was like, well, but she's getting ready for a new school year. And she was like, yeah, I have it all sort of mapped out through December. And I just laughed and I was like, yep. And that's actually, I think, something that's hard sometimes for teachers in business is we knew what we were doing every day until December, give or take a little
Not in
bit.
my classroom. The English teacher, not so much.
Well, but you knew the broad strokes of it.
Sure, sure, sure.
You did. You knew more than you give yourself credit
Oh, I'm
for.
sure.
And then you get into business and it feels like you can't know that, but you
Um,
can.
yeah,
Right? It feels like it can't be possible because you don't know how all this works yet, but also you didn't know it when you were a second year teacher.
true.
Like it's the same kind of thing.
And there's something, I think, that first year teaching experience, which we all know, if you are a teacher, you know what I am talking about. Bring you to your knees, like, maybe I need to change my profession moments.
And the entire time sick. Yes.
That is so helpful. To me in business, that all of that, because there was this perspective of like, okay, my first year was really tough and there were moments that I wanted to quit. And then my second year was so exponentially easier, right? Like, and then you learn about yourself, you learn about different methods. Like all of that has been helpful to remind me every year I'm in business that I can pull from all of that. And all the messing and flailing or the mess ups, whatever you want to call that. I think teachers, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but at least for me, I have a high tolerance for like, all right, that didn't work, because I want to think about all the times when I was in classroom where the overhead projector, now see, I'm dating myself, the overhead projector, that this didn't work, that didn't, like nothing worked. And in the moment, all of a sudden, you had to be resourceful. So there's like this beautiful energy of resourcefulness, I think, for all teachers that so feeds teachers. And I told a friend of mine years ago, it's like, coming to the business world is so much easier than being a teacher.
Well, because in the business world, like you get to be like, okay, today didn't go to plan. In a teaching world, like I have actually melted an overhead projector personally.
Oh,
I have, and I believe that same day I had a bird fly in an open window that was open like 3 inches into my classroom. I believe
nice.
I did it all in one day. And the head custodian was like, what is happening in here today? Where like, but you have all that go on, you want to throw in the towel and go take a nap, and there is still a bunch of humans looking at you like, what's next? And you're like, oh, shnikes, this is not good. But I was talking to somebody about this the other day. Like, as a first year teacher, you keep your nose above the water, you try, and you screw it all up, it all goes terribly wrong, they survive, it's okay.
Mhm.
In the second year, you actually like stand on your feet and you're like, oh, okay. You like find your sea legs a little bit.
Yeah,
But by the third year, you're like, oh, I might do something fun.
yeah.
Like I might be able to do something interesting. And then it just gets better. But business is the same. We look at it 6 months in and we're like, well, I'm still keeping my head above water. No shit, people. Like, of course
Yes,
you are.
yes, yes, and
Right. Like that people are like, right, but this is hard. Like, yeah, it
Mhm.
is. Nothing is new. Like it's not, we
It's
have
not
this
true.
expectation. It's wild. But in
Yeah,
teaching, you're like, oh, it's only your second year. You're okay. And in
yeah.
business,
Like
we're
we have
like,
that
you've been
permission.
in business 2 years?
Yeah.
The horror. You haven't figured it all out yet and made your $1 million? Like, blah.
Well,
So
and that reminds me, one of the things that I think is such a benefit, and it was the hardest thing for me to do when I walked away from being a teacher, the people that I worked with, because I absolutely loved and adored them like my family. You do have this kind of generally this support system. I think one of the challenges, not that if we go into that space for a minute, is that as an entrepreneur and being in business, if you're by yourself, it's like, how do you create then that support system for yourself? Because it can feel very isolating and alone, I think, in general. But for teachers, we're social, most of us are social creatures, right? We like to go into the faculty room and have a cup of coffee and see who's in there. At least that's what I did. And so when you start business, you can feel so you don't have that person. I had that person saying, it's your first year, don't worry, you got this, right? That person in business doesn't necessarily always exist unless you intentionally create that. So I would say if you really love that support system, and I think entrepreneurs really need some of that, they need those reminders of like, it's okay. Like, let's zoom out a little bit and look at the bigger picture. You will get through whatever this is.
well, and it is that like I was not necessarily always in the teacher's room, but I had my people. Like you have your people that you can walk down the hallway and be like, you will never believe what just happened in my room. And what do I do with this? And dear God, this day, like, is it a full moon and a rainy Thursday? Like, what's going on here?
And Halloween,
And
where
right.
the kids had packs of candy in their pockets.
Is it the day after? Please, 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 please. Ouch. So it is that like that community building. And I can remember the other time I felt this was as a brand new mom. I can remember, and I like have this secret side mission that I
Mm.
I run in my life
Mhm.
where I truly, whenever one of my people in my extended circle has a baby, especially their first one, I am like the person stalking them a little bit
Mhm.
because I can remember feeling so very alone. We didn't really know a lot of people here. Like I didn't have, I've never felt so by myself and with a screaming human, honestly, because all she did was cry. And so it is that same kind of thing. And eventually I was like, oh, I have to find people. Like I need people. But I like secretly have made it my mission. Like none of my friends of friends should ever have to feel that. So I'm always like, hi, how are you? What are you doing? Everything okay? Want to talk? Want to have a conversation with a human that doesn't care if your baby's screaming? Like, but it's the
Yeah.
same thing. But there are people here out in the business world that are like, I need people too. Let's
Yeah.
make friends. And
Well,
they're here
even
for you.
having a coach, right? It's a
Mm,
perfect thing for anybody, teachers too, to have that coach in their corner that absolutely can, like to me, a coach can remind you of all these things and hold the space. And it's like, I think everybody on the planet could benefit, right? You don't have to have a coach, but who wouldn't want somebody to really be able to help you navigate and facilitate your own growth and learning and knowledge, and also really to be that safe place and that place when, again, everything's going wrong and you feel like you're the only one out on the planet, to have the person that's like, come closer, I got you.
well, and actually, the other thing that I found really helpful early in my business when I started working with the one-on-one coach I had is the other thing I got from her from being in her world were other people in her world.
Yeah, that's
So
good.
like I would go to her events and do her things. And then like I actually had a conversation with two yesterday. We meet every other week. One will be on the podcast in a couple weeks. One will be on shortly thereafter. But they are people that I know because I was in her world and we now serve each other. Like that is, I got the benefit of the coaching, which I really needed, which I needed to get out of my own way. Cause honestly, like we all get in our own way and you're like, oh, you know who the problem is here? Me. Hi, I am the problem. Where you're like, oh, what's the problem? I am. Oops. And I needed help to get out of that.
Yeah.
But the added benefit for me, and I know I've been able to introduce clients to other clients to sort of build them a network, is to be able to say to people, look, or be introduced to other people that you're like, well, I can remember the coach I was working with did a live at some point, and one of the other women and I were going back and forth in the comments, and she was like, you two, she was like, you two are meant to be friends. Go forth. And like we were like, okay, let's be friends. And sure enough, we are. But like we're busy, we talk business, we talk life, we do all those things. But that community goes a long way. I think that that's a big deal.
It's true. Locally, years ago, when I first started my business, I was out networking, right? This
Mm.
is what we all do. And I remember time and time again, people said to me, Stacey, there's a lot of places like to go stand up and give your like 1 minute pitch, right? And then ask for referrals. But there's not a community where you can actually work on your business, like talk about your business, talk about your the things you're most proud of, talk about the things that have got you kind of sideways. And it was interesting. I decided after I'd been in a networking group that had folded, I was like, you know what? I'm going to create the thing that I keep hearing over and over and over again. And it was a variety of different entrepreneurs and people in different, actually, it didn't matter to me whether you're an entrepreneur, but it was like a place for you to be able to come and have that community. It's such an important piece. I think that we don't probably intentionally think about, right, when we're starting a business or as we're in business. I always say, what's your dream team look like, right? What
Mm.
are the people like you're creating communities, support, your coach is in there, maybe your accountant is in there, maybe your your trainer, your massage therapist. Like, what are the things that you are doing to really take exceptional care of yourself? Because I also think that teachers do not they are, right? They are the epitome sometimes of burnout because they put everybody else above their own needs. And one of the things when I left teaching was like, there has to be a different way. There has to be a way where we can take really good care of ourselves, not burn out. Although I will say, when I go back and do staff development for teachers now, they all look at me like the stink eye for a good
Sideways.
5 minutes when I tell them that I want to challenge them to change that.
Mm.
And I do get a little street cred because I taught, so that helps me soften that idea. But that is also a very prevalent idea that I think we as teachers and just again people on the planet can take into our business that doesn't serve us so well. Oh my gosh, if I was working 80 hours a week, right? Teaching, grading papers, doing this, lesson planning, running, like I should be doing that in my business. And what I find for myself personally and for others, like that's the fastest way to hate your business and not want to do
Well,
it.
and the thing about it, I think that's really important about that is like the whole point. If you left teaching because you were burned out to go into business, the whole point was to have it be different,
Yes.
not the same. Like it was not to go back to banging your head on your desk. Like that's not, that's not
That's such
why
a
we
good
did
point.
it.
Do you think we can just kind of almost inadvertently, because we don't really examine the thoughts and our patterns, I think we can like, because I did it and I
Yep.
didn't want it either. And it was like, wait, I find myself in this grind. What am I doing?
Right. Well, and then it's, it was funny. I wrote a post last week about how like on Friday, I sat down at my desk. It was like 9:17. And my
Mm,
brain was like, you are so late. And I was like, dude, what?
late bell, late bell. I hear it as soon as you say
Right. There was like, where's
the
the,
rang.
I at this point have thought about it enough to be like, oh my God, are you kidding me right now? Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm late and I'm getting up at 2. Like, and I'm out early. So what?
Yeah.
But it was, my brain offered like you were supposed to be here at 8:30 and you don't get out till 4. And I was like, oh my, that's very interesting of you. Thank you. Because I don't have to live on that schedule. That's not the point of this. So I
I
get
know,
that.
and even though we say what we want, I think there is a little bit of work there to break that, to be more intentional, to break those patterns. And like you said, when the thought comes up, it's like, all right,
Well, and not
Fridays.
thinking like, oh my God, I am late.
I feel the
Like,
same way about Fridays because after I left teaching, I worked in the corporate world for 10 years. So I went into HR and development, again,
yep,
teaching in the business world.
amen. I did the same.
And what I remember, Friday afternoons, especially in summer, my work would be done, and I worked in a company culture that did not let you leave even if your work was done. You had to stay till 5 o'clock, and I can remember like from 4 to 5 was the most painful hour of
Sitting
my
there.
life, especially in the summers on a Friday afternoon at work. And so, one of the things I remember saying to myself is like, I am having whatever I want to do on Friday is what I'm doing. And I still every once in a while get that. It's almost like an echo, like you said, right? Of like, what do you mean you're like going to lunch? And like, but the more fun I actually have, the more I break some of those old patterns.
Yes.
And
Well,
I'm
and it's not to say like give up working for a week and sit and watch
exactly,
Netflix,
exactly.
but if you need to, go do that. Like I
Yeah,
can remember my first boss when I went to Britannica, he early on, I don't remember what happened. And he was like, dude, you work 3,000 miles, however many miles away. He was like, you get all your stuff done. I don't give a flying whatever when it happens. He was like, do what you want. And I was like, I don't compute this.
yeah.
What is my brain was like, but, but I have a bell at 8 and what at 4 and what's happening right now? And he was like, whatever, man, do you. And I was like, I
It's
don't
almost like the
understand.
teacher, right? Because we defer our power and our agency and our sovereignty to things outside of ourselves, the teachers do. And so it's like we have to claim that for ourselves. Like this idea, it's interesting to me even too. It's like I don't look at like just the hierarchy. Well, I'm a teacher and you're the student, or you're the client. It's like,
Mm,
no, absolutely. You know what is best for you. And you know what, but we haven't been dipped in that world, right? We've been
mhm.
dipped in a world that is very much trying to tell us the opposite of that. So it is almost like a radical departure at some points. Not that it always looks like a big, gesture, but a radical departure to really be able to say, ah, I can do this however I want. And you're right. I think we've been told to be afraid that if we just if you just decide you're gonna have fun on Friday, you're gonna eat bonbons all day, and your business is just gonna fall apart. And it's like That couldn't be further from the truth, but I think that that again is a fear that we've been
Mhm.
fed to manipulate us
Manipulate.
into doing whatever it is, staying in the form, staying in the structure,
Yeah.
right? Staying till 5 o'clock, even though your work isn't done. Now, if I had a project I was working on, I could have stayed there till 7 o'clock because I was so in to what a passionate write about whatever it was. But just to sit there for no good reason to me was just absolutely
Insane.
beyond my comprehension.
Well, and I think the other part of this, and I had somebody say to me recently, right, but I decided I wouldn't do that schedule and I still feel bad about it sometimes. Well, yeah, like
Yeah.
this is practice. Like I still feel bad. Friday afternoon, my brain said I was late. I have been working on my own schedule for almost 10 years. And my brain was like, you are so late. And I was like, oh God, thank you. But like it's a constant like you it's constantly reminding yourself that the person who sets the rules in all of this is you. And it's that like it's the practice of that. Just like anything else, you don't get on a bike. We were watching the Olympics last night and we were watching these 13-year-old girls skateboard in the
Mm.
Olympics. It was wild. And my son came downstairs and he was like, well, how is it okay for them to be 13 at the Olympics? I'm like, actually, it's probably all they do is practice this. But
Yep.
they've been practicing their whole lives, basically. They like the one hopped on and off like it was an extra foot. It was wild. And it's that practice. So she just constantly thinks in those modes. Like if you constantly think, I make the rules,
Mhm.
it becomes natural. It just takes time because that's not the message the world gives us.
No. And it brings me to a really important part of my work is this intuitive knowing that we have and resetting that. I know for a fact, I mean, maybe in my classroom it happened, but generally speaking, we weren't teaching the youngins to use their intuitive knowings, their gifts. Everybody has it on the planet. So if you say, I'm not intuitive, I just say it's been underdeveloped, right? If you never did trigonometry and did whatever is involved in trigonometry doesn't mean you couldn't do it. You just haven't gone down that path.
Yep.
And so to me, what do you do if you really want to start changing and practicing something different? This is where intuition comes into play, like using the things beyond just what we can see in front of our face. And I believe, I know myself as a teacher, and I know you too, it's like we were doing those things, right? Intuitively, when something wasn't going right or something happened, if you tried X, Y, and Z and it didn't work, you pulled something else forward. Where did that come from? There is this knowing and there is this wealth of access to our own insight, development with business, with life, with all the things. And again, most of us we just haven't been to that school yet, and that's my mission as part of teaching now. And it's not teaching you Stacy's intuition or Stacy's tool, right? Like it's helping you unlock your own intuition because it might look a lot different than me. And that's where I'm an expert because I can absolutely help people find that for themselves. And really, again, you start to use it in ways you're like, oh, this makes life so much easier. There's so much more clarity. And it's like, yeah. And it's like my favorite Wizard of Oz line, you had the power all along.
Well, and it's that like it's funny. I talked to a person last week who was new to me, and she and I were talking, and I kept bringing to the same point
Mhm.
about some doubts I think she was having about whether or not she could do this business thing. And she finally said to me, like, why do you keep bringing us back here?
Mm.
And I said, and she's been a teacher a long time. And I said to her, in a classroom sometimes where you look at a student, you know exactly what's happening. And some of it is experience and some of it is you just know. I said, I know that this is what's happening here. Like, do you know this is what's happening here? And she went, well, yeah. She's like, she's like, I don't know if I knew it before this. but it was this underlying, like, doubting her own abilities kind of thing that's running through.
Yeah.
And I just, there is that intuition and instinct and experience, and all of that kind of combines together.
Mhm.
Teachers use that all the time. Teachers
Totally.
are great. There's one thing about using it internally for your own benefit, but I think what teachers do best is turn that towards other people
Yes.
and use it to, like, hey, other human, like, do you
Mhm.
see this pattern? I know this thing happening here. Or I'll have a student doing something and I'll be seeing it online and I'll be like, oh, this is what's going on here. My husband will go like, how do you know?
Yeah.
Well, because I have this combination of experience and expertise and time, and just sometimes I just know. I
Mhm.
know what they did. I know why,
Mhm.
because I've seen it all and we've done it, but also just because, I mean, you
Yeah.
have those pieces and you get to turn that intuition towards other people and use it for their benefit, which is sort of the joy of teaching in a lot of ways.
Totally. And so what if teachers took all of that energy and then used it, right? Used what they have given so generously and beautifully to the world and give it to themselves too. And I always use the metaphor of like the heart. There, it's years ago I heard somebody use this and it really resonated. The heart has to give blood and receive blood, right? Like there's this
Mm.
the inhale, if you're a yoga person, the inhale and the exhale. Like there isn't just one, there isn't just the outward. It's like, what if you really learned and took the time to use all of that? I love what you just said, expertise, knowing, experience for yourself. Is like, we're changing the world.
For real though, but that's
The
the
world
work of
is now
teachers, isn't
changing.
it? Like, that's the thing. All right. So if there are people listening, and there are, who are at the front end of all of this, where it's like, maybe a business, maybe step out, maybe, what's the one thing you want to tell them? Like, what is the thing? I hate the question, like, what do you wish you have known? Because I don't think the world works like that. And I don't think we can know. I think people tell us things sometimes and we can't hear them yet, all of those things.
Yeah.
But like, what is the thing that you wish they could hear?
So I will share what I heard, which changed my life, and which is how I decided, in addition to a voice in my head that said, "You're meant to open your own business." Um, I went on a whim, which is very unlike me, especially back then. More so, I think I would do it today. I went to Atlanta. I live in Baltimore. I did not know anybody. I went to an event where there was a room full of life coaches I didn't even know, and a woman who did not know me came over at some point during the dinner and she said to me, Stacey, she goes, I want to ask you one question. She goes, If this were your last year on the planet, what would you choose?"
Mm,
Right? And oh, I get goosebumps just thinking about it. And I was like, would I choose this job that I'm in? As now you all have heard, I was not quite happy in. Would I choose this if this was it? What do I choose? And it wasn't just business, but I mean, it obviously was all encompassing. But that made it so clear to me. And like this idea of I'm like, I always imagine myself, the woman in the Titanic movie who like throws the jewel over and then that's how I want to go out of the world, very gently and easily. And so I'm like, okay, if I'm standing on the boat and like I'm looking back at my life, which is what she's doing in that those scenes, it's like, have I let fear, right,
mm,
stop me from really like being all in? And for me, that question of like, okay, like, because life's equally too long not to be doing what we really want and too short, right? Like you can
not to
pull
be
that
doing what you really
paradox.
want. Yes.
And so what I found was, and what also bolstered me right at that time was there was a research article in the New York Times that was interviewing people at the end of their lives. Nobody ever says, ever, pretty much, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad I played it safe. I didn't take the risk." People will say, "I wish I took more risks. I wish I went for the thing that I wanted to do." I hear it all the time with my clients, right? And so it's like, you don't need to wait for the perfect moment, which is, I think, another thing I'm always waiting for. When is the right sign? It was like you can create the perfect moment with, to your point, not knowing everything yet, but what is in your heart that you don't want to leave the planet undone or unfinished.
Well, and it's funny. All of those things in my world came from my dad. And
Mm,
there are many like shrug-shouldered Gregisms, but the one that comes to me time and time again in business and in all the things is nothing ventured, nothing gained.
yeah,
Like, and he would just go like, and you were like, oh crap.
yeah. And you know
Because
what I
you
told
have to step out, right?
you too? Yeah. And I told myself something very powerful in the moment. This is way before I knew thought, really knew the power of thought work. If this doesn't work out, this was for me, I like to go worst case scenario. It makes me feel better. I know that it might
I have
not work
so
for
many
everybody
friends
else.
like you, worst case scenario girl. I have
Worst
so
case,
many of
fine.
you.
Let me know what the word. I was like, if this doesn't work out, I was like, oh my gosh, you've been a successful teacher, been successful in business. What I said to myself is, you'll get back on your feet. If this isn't the right thing, you'll get redirected and it will all work out. So it's like, if you trust and know it's always going to work out, like what would you choose, right? If you
Mm.
knew it was going to work out for you 100%, whatever it is, what is it that really truly calls to you? And that helped me, especially, again, take those risks. And I had a lot of stuff going on in my personal life, and I was like, if I could manage all that stuff, I could take a risk in business.
Well, and it is
That
that
was helpful
trust,
too.
right? That trust you go back to where it's like I get made fun of in certain circles amongst my friends where like I'm flipping stubborn. Like,
Mm,
y'all, listen, it's not that I question whether or not it's going to work out because it is damn well going to work out. Like it's
mm,
going to work out. I had a conversation with somebody trying to sell me something a couple weeks ago and he said to me like, okay, how would it work if you solved this problem? How would it look? How would it look in a year if you don't solve this problem? And I looked at him and I was like, dude, listen, there's no version of this where I don't solve this problem. And he was like, well, but what if you didn't? And I was like, right, I understand your question. I understand this sales process, but that's not on the table. Pick a new question. He
yeah.
was like, I don't know what to do with you, crazy person.
But
Because
that
I was
faith is so true, right? That's so grounded and anchored in you that, again, what is the most anchoring thought for you that is going to help you in the moments you're not sure? You don't have to be 100% sure. There was a coach, I don't remember who said it, like, what if you're just like 51%?
yeah,
Right? It's just a
yeah.
tipping point of that. And it was like, that also gave me a lot of confidence because I was like, ooh, okay, this is just putting me in this place. I don't have to be 100% sure of everything and all the things. I could be 51. I know that's the camp or my scale, right? That's leaning that way. And that was really helpful too at the beginning, kind of
Well,
thinking
and
about it that way.
exactly. And here's the thing, like you don't have to know what it's going to look like to know that you're going to get there.
Yeah.
Like my stubbornness is like, oh no, it's going to work out. What do you mean? What is it going to look like when it works out? I don't freaking know, but I know it's gonna, because it's gonna work. Dang it.
Yeah.
So tell me how to have people find you, and we will link all this together in the transcript stuff. And tell me, do you want to tell people about what's happening in August?
Of course, because again, I have somebody traveling out of town. So I love live person events because I think there's such, again, everything we've talked about in the last hour, this community, this connection, when you're in person, the energy of that. So I am bringing all of the goddesses. And if you are like, got a little like, that's not me, it is you, because goddesses are all like, again, you're walking the planet, you've got goddess in you, you're embodying that, because to me it's this place of knowing and
Yeah.
trusting and building that relationship with ourselves and being able to be seen exactly who we are. This isn't like I've created some airbrushed idealized version. No, I want you to be who you are
Yeah.
and show up, because that's going to make this event incredible. That's in August on the 26th. It's an evening event, so if you want more information about that, you can go to my website and look under my events tab and you'll see the goddess gathering and it will give you all the details. I am doing a free challenge next week. I'm having some fun in my free
Well, which
Facebook
week?
group.
Which week?
August 2nd.
Okay.
Thank you for my clarification. And I'm always doing fun stuff in there. And that is all about, so many people are always asking me, Stacey, how do you know you're really getting an intuitive sign? Right? That's like the question all the time. What do you mean? How can I trust it? What do I know? And so we're going to just dive in with so much fun, get signs, learn about signs, all of that. And again, not Stacey's signs, your signs. So if you want to get a message every day next week and you want to learn how to do this on your own for fun with your business and your personal life, my Facebook group is called Unlock Your Midlife Magic.
Woohoo.
Mm,
Stacey, Stacey, Stacey.
yeah,
Thank you. Thank
you
you.
are so
Thank
welcome.
you. This is fun. These are my most fun things ever. I like a good podcast and I like them with people. And this is such a treat for me. And I'm sure for everyone else, because you know what? You are proof that you walk into the teaching world and you knew what you were going to do. And then you walked away and thought like, nope, I have this other thing, but I'm still teaching and I'm still out in the world and I'm doing it a different way. But what you do is you serve a larger and larger circle, and those people walk away and serve more and more and more. And it just extends the influence that you have on the world in a way that is just magically yours.
Like it, I could talk to you forever on a podcast. The Infinity podcast, I'm in for that.
Yeah, right.
And thank
We'll
you.
just
And thank
talk.
you.
Y'all listen.
Thank you for honoring teachers so much, because I think so often teachers, maybe are misunderstood. That they're kind of, they don't always get the attention that they deserve, how amazing they are. And I really do believe they are change agents for the planet. So this is how we do it, whether we're in the classroom, whether we're in business, we take that kind of innate, those gifts that we have, our superpowers, and we share them with the world in such beautiful ways. So for everyone that's a teacher,
A freaking
and however you define that and look at that, kudos to you, because you're doing an amazing job.
teachers belong at the heads of all the tables, people. That is where we
Totally.
want to put them all. So that is nice.
Totally.
So listen, we will have all of Stacey's stuff linked in the show notes. If you are looking, we will link in her gathering. And then also, like, if you're wanting to talk about coaching, if you are a teacher in the world and you're like, teaching in business and how do we speak these languages together, like, send a message, come talk to her, come talk to me, come talk to all the people. You'll find your person. Find
Well,
your person, because having a person to walk next to you instead of reinventing the wheel the entire time really does make a freaking lot of difference.
it does.
And it doesn't have to be me or Stacey. It can be whoever is speaking to your person, but you have to find the human that you can stand elbow to elbow with and be like, oh. Because every now and then somebody says something and you're like, oh, I've been doing this the hardest way possible. Crap. And so it really is about finding the way that makes this all easier for you without also at the same time buying 400 courses. So please don't do that.
Please don't.
It is
Teach.
the teacher
We're all
tendency.
guilty of some of that at the beginning.
All of us are. So we see
Yes.
you and take your
You
finger
don't
off the
either.
button and go work with a human.
Exactly.
Please. All right. Well, thank you all. It is a pleasure, and we will see you on the next one.